I was reading something today about, as everybody knows, there's a major refugee crisis. We've talked about it already on this channel a few times. Interestingly enough, Vladimir Putin, who's the president of Russia, he went ahead and blamed the United States and Europe for the current problems with the refugees trying to escape to Europe. And let me just read the quote exactly. He said, "This is a crisis which was absolutely expected. We in Russia and your humble servant said several years ago that there would be massive problems if our so-called Western partners," I love the so-called Western partners thing, "conduct what I have always called the, quote, wrong foreign policy, especially in regions of the Muslim world, the Middle East, and in North Africa, which they continue practically to this day." So what do you have to say about that, Shlomo?
Well, I think in some ways Putin is, well, first of all, I don't like Putin at all. I think he is a totalitarian dictator in Russia, and he rules with an iron fist by killing off journalists and also taking money from the Russian mob. However, to get back to this point, I think the kind of thing that, I mean, this is a very vague question as well, because by what foreign policy is he talking about?
Well, I'll tell you. I think what he said, because he said North Africa and stuff like that, what he's talking about, he was very against the Iraq War, and now, as we know, Iraq is in shambles. Even though Russia and China both abstained from the Security Council resolution against Libya in 2011, it was clear that Vladimir Putin was not happy with it, and he came out really harshly during the war, saying NATO did this, NATO did that. They lied to us about the Security Council. They said they were just going to protect civilians, and instead they're bombing all of this unnecessary infrastructure there. And then he was talking about how they almost wanted to bomb Syria, and it's all in mess. I think that's what he's talking about, and to be honest, I'm not going to say that I'm a Vladimir Putin fan necessarily, but I think he actually makes a point here, because it was very clear. I think if you just know the slightest bit about who Al-Qaeda is and what they are, and you knew that they were trying to topple the regimes in Syria and Libya, you would know it's probably not the best idea to be their air power. It's probably not such a great idea. Not saying that the regimes that they're trying to topple are any good, but it's probably not the best idea.
So what Putin is saying is he's basically against the U.S. supporting the Arab Spring?
Correct. Or that, but most likely, the people toppling Gaddafi were Al-Qaeda. We know this. They were Al-Qaeda militants or terrorists. And the ones fighting Assad in Syria are also Al-Qaeda and now ISIS as well.
Well, obviously, I think ever since Obama has taken office, the Middle East policy has gone downhill.
Yeah.
From the Benghazi incident.
So now the United States actually supports the very people that
we were fighting,
destroyed the Twin Towers. And that's a treasonous offense. So I think, look, I mean, he happens to be the leader of Russia, but, if you're an American and you know that Al-Qaeda is your enemy and you know that Al-Qaeda is the enemy of the United States, I think you're probably likely to agree with Vladimir Putin on this, Well, I mean, would you agree?
Well, I think in some ways he's right. The U.S. policy in the Middle East has been restraint and to send proxies to fight our wars for us.
Yep.
And I think it's going to bite us back in the...
Wait, so if I may ask you on this, you're saying that the problem with U.S. foreign policy now is that U.S. is being too weak now?
Exactly, they're being too weak.
See, Vladimir Putin would disagree with you on that. He'd say that America's being too aggressive.
Well, I think he's being too aggressive in the extent that they're funding our enemies.
Who's our enemies here?
Al-Qaeda.
Who? Russia?
No.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Arabs.
Yeah.
Arabs themselves, the Arab terrorist groups.
Yeah.
Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, the people that toppled Gaddafi, all the people that are fighting against Assad.
Yeah.
They've even found American weapons with those terrorist groups.
Oh yeah, because and let me go back to this for a second, because when we supported the moderate people in quotes, the moderate rebels in Syria, they were really like radical Islamists who knew how to speak Western language. When John McCain goes in and has that little picture with some of those radicals, and basically we give them the weapons and it's in their hands, and also we drop some weapons in Syria supposedly to help the moderate rebel groups, and then ISIS picks it up, just like they did from the Iraqi army last year. And so it's like mistake after mistake after mistake, and
Big mistakes.
big mistakes, and we're not stopping. And you might not, Putin might not be your favorite guy. I'm not going to declare myself necessarily a Vladimir Putin fan, but he's right on this. At least I think.